Hello there. Hearing this story for a second time recently reinforced one of the most important things that I think gets neglected in the pursuit of growth and scale. And that is the leader's responsibility to own the employee experience. If we don't do that, our sustainability, our ability to keep on scaling and growing and making profits gets severely reduced. So let's look at one simple idea that can help you get there. Stay tuned. Hey there, Ian here once again, and it's a pleasure to be able to be with you. I hope this is catching you happy, healthy and strong. The story that I'm talking about is or relates to an industry where the staff turnover is very high. Traditionally, it's just one of those things. And what the CEO noticed was that there are certain branches, this was countrywide in the US, certain branches had very high customer ratings. Some had medium, some had low, but some had high ratings. They also had a rating for staff turnover. Now, staff turnover in that industry is about 120%. So on average, the person that starts at the beginning of the year is gone by the end of the year. So people in the industry just learned to live with that degree of staff turnover. But back to the branches. Some were high customer rating, some were low, some had high staff turnover, some had low, but there was no correlation between a high performance branch and staff retention. Some of the high performing branches or the highest performing branches had the highest level of staff turnover. There was no correlation between performance and staff retention at all. So he thought, what am I missing? So one way of looking at it would be take what the high performance branches are doing, duplicate that and just keep throwing bodies at it, keep throwing people at it, because at least we retain some of the high performance, or that's what we hope we do. Hopefully you're thinking there's a better option, right? So in the first case, you want to duplicate what the high performance branches are doing, but then look at what causes people to stay at some of the lower performing branches and marry performance and staff retention and see how far that gets you. And that's exactly what he did. Follow me through. So we are responsible for the employee experience. Now, I'm sure that you may have had this experience directly or you may know someone this is applied to. And the experience is the person, maybe you, does one job in a certain environment and hates it. You know, we do a mediocre job and it's just no fun and we dread going to work. We can do, or someone you know can do exactly the same job. They do the same job with the same deliverables and the same responsibility, and they love it and they thrive and they progress up through the levels of the company. What's the difference? The difference is simply the environment that they're working on, and the people that are responsible for that environment are the leaders, that direct supervisor for that function, and ultimately the managing director or CEO of the organization. So it's one thing that we cannot escape. Now, in one particular case study, Michael Dell of Dell Computers fame, he's a self-confessed, not that much of a people type person. And when you get to about 50 staff, around about that time, it becomes harder to remember everyone's name. It becomes harder to know everybody in the organization. And about that time, we really need some way of keeping our rank and file both compliant towards regulations and happy in what they're doing. If the MD or CEO is not that way inclined, and they may have other responsibilities too, someone's got to do the job. Ultimately, it falls on the CEO, but there has to be some mechanism in the company that looks after the people. Now, as a side issue, whatever you call and I'm going to bet, or I'm going to make a pretty sure guess, that the person that you give that responsibility to is the HR manager. Now, the side issue that I'm talking about is, whatever you do, don't call it HR. Human resources sounds extremely transactional, but these are people. So, human experience director, people experience director, director of employee experience, whatever you call it, try and steer away from HR. It'll make a difference. I'm pretty sure. So, coming back to making sure that the people have a great experience at work. One question can help you get there. One. Okay, if you're thinking, well, what do I do? Where do I start? Here is one question that can help you. And the question is, how can I make the lives of my team members easier today? But nothing more complicated than that. Because if we can remove the friction, it counts for so much more productivity gain. You could say, right, that the more cynical answer was, how can I make the lives of my team easier? Well, I can double salary, I can reduce the working hours, I can reduce the job scope. That means people get paid for pretty much nothing. And everyone knows, even the team members themselves, that's unsustainable. You can't do that. You'll go out of business and there will be no job. And in my experience, people actually want to do a good job. They want to contribute. So how can I make lives easier? The practical response to that is to get rid of friction, to get rid of silly processes, silly meetings, reduce the amount of steps required in a process. Maybe that is giving authority to a certain subset of people that can make that decision without having to come to a manager for approval. There are lots of things that can be done that reduces the friction and frustration at the workplace. Asking that simple question can often give you huge productivity gains. Lastly, the last idea, when you've asked the question, how we often respond to fixing the problem is to add things, add a new procedure, add a new bit of software, add a new meeting or something that we think is going to fix the problem. Stop there. Many, and I'd probably say most, sources of friction can be relieved by getting rid of stuff. Always think prune first, then add. Any competent gardener who looks after plants and flowers and trees will say it's important to prune back branches, even some of the healthy ones, you prune them back to allow them to grow even more faster and more healthy. And of course you prune off the dead and dying leaves. And that helps the plant to grow. Think of that for your company or your department. Prune first, get rid of stuff before you add, because you could just be adding to the friction and the complexity. I really hope that gave you some ideas. The easiest way to start is simply to ask your team members, how can I make your lives easier today? How can that be done? And don't be worried, or don't be disheartened if the team can't give you a whole list of stuff right now. Be persistent. Keep on asking them. And if you keep asking and you're serious about fixing stuff, It's amazing how much more people are willing to share once they know you're serious. And that can be a huge advantage. It can be more fun. Typically, staff turnover will go down. And it's amazing how much profit follows fun. If it's just more enjoyable to be at your company and do a good job, it's amazing how much revenue and profits actually follow that sentiment. I hope that gave you some ideas, and until we share again, take care of each other.